Hey man, why is it that God commands thou shalt not, but then turns around and has plenty of examples of where he loses his temper and unalives people?
Oh, that's a great question, and what a topic to talk about considering TikTok won't let us use this word.
I know.
So first off, the commandment that says thou shalt not, you can see the word right there, is the King James Version, which isn't an accurate translation of the passage.
Really?
Yeah, so in Hebrew there are two words, just as English has, to describe unaliving someone. The Hebrew word here in this passage is ratzak, which is an unjustified unaliving. It's the equivalent of this English word.
Okay.
But the equivalent to this word, which is justified unaliving, like unaliving an animal or unaliving in self-defense, is the Hebrew word harag. So we have justified unaliving and unjustified unaliving.
Sure.
So to approach your question about God, let me give you an example, because I think justifying unaliving a person requires a specific role and a reason.
What do you mean?
Well, let's use a police officer, for example. He has the role of defending his citizens from harm, which can justly include the unaliving of a perpetrator. Not saying all police officers act justly, but in a scenario where a perpetrator is going to harm others, and in order to stop them, they get unalived, that officer is justified.
Okay.
So both his role and his reason for doing it justifies his actions.
I'm following. Just curious how this is going to apply to God.
Yeah, it's different with God, right? Because he's not a human being. He's God.
True.
God's role is, well, being the God of the universe. If we're believing what he says in the Bible, that there will be a day where people will live with him for eternity, and that he's not wishing that any should perish, but that all should reach repentance, this means God's role and responsibility is to ensure as many people end up in heaven as possible.
I agree.
God is also all-knowing. He knows what reactions will unfold from every action taken, down to the small blade of grass blowing in the wind. He sees the rippling effects that blade of grass has for eternity.
Okay.
So because God knows, he has a role, a responsibility, a duty to ensure certain things come into play that will ultimately result in that greater end goal.
Sure.
To us, someone being unalived unjustly, like I explained, is wrong. We punish those who do that. They have no justified reason or role to do such a thing. But again, God's role is far more important than a police officer defending citizens. God is defending the citizens of his new kingdom. And his reasons? Well, we can't always see his reasons. We're not God. We don't have that omniscient perspective he has, to know what things will affect what. All I know is when I look back on my life and I see some of the terrible things that happened to me, all of them, every single one of them brought me and molded me into the person I am today. And I wouldn't change that for the world.
Okay, I guess this makes sense.
So when you ask why is God being hypocritical about unaliving people, and you're judging him for the role and responsibility he has, he's the giver of life. So he's perfectly justified in taking it to suit the purposes and mission of ensuring as many people as possible are ushered into his kingdom.